guys, it's been about 5 years. Yeah, crazy times. I can't believe I'm back making videos again. It's something I've wanted to do for quite a while. But there's been some huge changes since I last made videos. In case you're wondering who I am, because it has been so long, I'm Katie. I'm just going to do a quick run through of the changes that I can think about and a slight reason of why I stopped making videos, but I think I'm going to make a new video on going into depth of all that because it does revolve around booktube in general. In the past 5 years, I've watched my little boy grow up. I've had another little boy. I now have 2 boys, Miles and Noah. We've moved house, we've moved to a really nice area, somewhere where we are much more settled than we were before. I changed jobs. I'm actually technically unemployed right now, but that's because I'm now a full-time student. I've gone back to university. I say back to university, I've never been to university. I'm 31 years old and I'm definitely a mature student now. So I did an access course to get there, which I did last year, and this year I'm now at university and I'm studying English language and literature. It comes as no surprise really when you think about my booktube and how much I love reading, but actually I've realised that I really prefer the language side of it rather than the literature, and that is something I will go into in another video if you want to know about it. I found out that I'm dyslexic, so that was a fun experience. That was diagnosed earlier this year, so hence why I don't really make videos very often, and that is one of the big reasons. I didn't know that I had dyslexia, so I spent a lot of time wondering why I couldn't keep up with the booktube community, wondering why I couldn't articulate my words as well as other people and be able to really do these great book reviews, and relied upon my excitement because I didn't sound intelligent enough and I didn't have these incredible ways to describe my thoughts and feelings towards a book. Yeah, it turns out I'm dyslexic, so doesn't mean I'm less intelligent than anybody else, but it sometimes means that I stumble across my words, I don't read as fast as anybody else. But the one thing that I think really does help my dyslexia is that I do read a lot. Recently, I've really struggled with reading, like the past couple of days, but that's because my dyslexia is really bad. So I struggle to process what I'm reading, but I'll get over it. Just keep powering through. So those are probably the biggest life changes. I'm now a mature student. I'm a dyslexic mature student, which is just adds a little bit of fun there. And yeah, it explains why when I was having my boys, I also didn't read a lot, because pregnancy brain, baby brain with dyslexia, I feel like it amplifies it all, so that explains that for me. So I've learned to forgive myself. It's a part of me and I'm now going to make videos about it. But just because I'm doing an English degree doesn't mean that my reviews of books, or I don't want to call them reviews because I just want to kind of go back to how I did when I first started booktube, which was sharing my love of reading as though I'm talking to a friend, not as though I'm trying to feel intelligent or know what I'm talking about when it comes to reviewing books. I just want to review books how I would to recommend them to a friend. So don't expect something really intelligent from this channel at all. Not that you ever did before, but I put that pressure on myself and that's why I don't make videos. So I'm going to start doing that again. Today's video though is a basic one. I'm not going to go back through everything that I've read over the past 5 years, because some years I read probably 10 books, some years I read like 30 books. I'm not going to go through that. I might make a video my favourite books that I read during that time, but what I am going to do is quickly run through what I read in January and then everything that I read in February. February was a massive reading month because I set myself a challenge that I'm going to read every single day no matter what. Even if it's 1 page, even if it's 100 pages, like I'm going to read every single day because it really does help keep my mental health quite well, and also my dyslexia. So yeah, I'm gonna get on with the video now, and yeah, I'm so excited to be back. I forgot how much I love this. Like, I've missed you guys. So in January I managed to read 4 books. I started the year off really well. I thought I'd start with a sci-fi book because that is my genre, my favourite genre, and the first book I read in 2020 was Skyward by Sanderson. This was amazing. Like, I couldn't have picked a better book to kick off 2020 than this. This is about a girl called, I keep wanting to call her Trell, that is not her name, that is another series, that is a sci-fi series that I love. It's about this girl who lives on a planet that is constantly being invaded by these aliens, and they're kind of at war with these aliens. And our main character Spencer has wanted to be a pilot forever. Her dad was a pilot. The only problem is that her dad was deemed as a coward when in this big fight, would you call it a fight in space? don't know. This is where the dyslexia kicks in. I can never think of the word that I want to use. Anyway, it was this big fight in space, and he fled the battle and was shot down by his crew and was deemed a coward. So our main character grows up in a society where being a pilot is hard enough anyway. It's like really prestigious to become a pilot and really difficult to get through the training process. And then she's also got the added difficulty and challenge of being a daughter of a coward. That is the basic premise of this, and oh my gosh, it was amazing. There's so many amazing characters in this. There was one slight downside to it, that I felt like they were trying to shoehorn a relationship in there, and I don't think it necessarily needed one in this book. Really, really good. Flew through it. I think I rated it 5 stars. I can't remember. 4 or 5 stars. I would imagine 5 stars. So that was the first book I read in 2020. The second book I read in 2020 was a little bit of a disappointment for me. Do not shoot me. I know this is an amazing book for everybody else. Everybody seems to love this. There's only like a few people that have the same opinion as me when it comes to this book. And what I'm talking about is The Toll by Neal Schusterman. I love Neal Schusterman. He's one of my favourite authors, and he's like a go-to author. I read the first one in this series, which is Scythe? I think it's called that. Thunderhead was amazing as well. I came to this one. This is the third in a series. I'm not going to tell you anything about this in particular, but the first one, if you've not heard of it, you never know. Like, you could have been away from booktube as long as I have. Is a dystopian society where they've cured death. Death has been cured. You cannot die. There's only a few possible ways that you can die. Other than that, they can revive you, which means that overpopulation is an issue. So they have these scythes which go around killing people, basically. Not as disturbing as that sounds. Well, it is as disturbing as that sounds, but not as brutal as I just described it. It is brutal. I don't know. Read the book. It is really, really good. The third one in the series, it was good. Okay, I'm not going to say it wasn't good. I think I rated it either 3 or 4 stars. I think I'm still thinking about that score. I think the book just didn't go the way that I wanted it to. I also felt like I was getting bored. Like, it was an extra probably 200 pages longer than it needed to be. There was a lot of information that wasn't entirely necessary. I really liked the ending. I loved where the author took the last part of this book, but there was just a middle bit where I just didn't care. Just a little bit of a disappointing. It focused on characters that I just did not care about. The majority of the book was spent with my characters in different areas. So I never got to see their relationships grow together. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. And one of my favourite characters just kind of went off and just felt sorry for themselves for quite a long period of time within this book, and that was a little bit sad because I kind of respected this character. If you want a more in-depth review, like a spoilery review, just let me know, because I have a lot to talk about with that book. The next 2 books are the first 2 books in a series. This is a series that I've been wanting to read for years. I started reading this series before my eldest son was born, and he is now 6 years old. So it has been on my TBR for a long time. The reason that kickstarted me to actually pick up this series is they are changing the covers of the books. So I thought, right, I need to buy the whole series and just plough through them. So I did. And the series I'm talking about is Cinder, the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. It starts off with a fairy tale retelling of Cinderella, but the main character is a cyborg. And yeah, it's a really good start to the series. The first time I read it, I think I rated it 5 stars. The reread, I think I only rated it 3 or 4 because it just didn't enthrall me as much as the first one. And I found that situations just fell into place quite nicely. But then I have to keep reminding myself that it is a fairy tale retelling. There's going to be aspects, for instance, insta-love, because that's what happened in the fairy tales. So I kept having to remind myself about things like that. But I really did enjoy it. One of the other challenges that I made myself this year was to continue series. So to kind of binge read series, because I do that with TV shows, so why aren't I doing it with fiction? So I did. I carried on with Scarlet. That was the next book. So in January I read both Cinder and Scarlet, the first 2 books in the Lunar Chronicles, and then we go over to February. So this is like the start of my February reading, and from what I've just said, I obviously did a continuation of this series. So the next book I picked up was Cress, which follows Scarlet obviously follows Little Red Riding Hood, and Cress follows Rapunzel. I I really love these twists on these stories. They're so clever. Like, they're not like the most cleverest thing that I've ever read. Like, they're not going to be something that's going to blow you away in terms of literary skills. Like, no, but they're fun. They're really, really fun books to read. And I think that's what I need in reading. I'm not bothered about reading a bunch of like incredibly intelligent books. I'm bothered about reading for pleasure and enjoyment. I don't give a crap. Anyway, so I read Cress. This is the third book in the series, Rapunzel. And every now and again, I just was like, oh, she's done it again. She's done it again. I just wonder where she's going to get the twists of the fairy tales. And when she does, I'm like, yeah. Some of them I see coming, some of them I'm just not looking for them. So I'm not bothered about like finding them first, and they come and I'm like, yes, love it. So the third one in the series, Cress. I went on to read the fourth book in the series, which is Winter. But I did a little bit of research first and realised that the best way to read it was to read some of the short stories, the novellas first. And you also needed to read Fairest. So I picked up Stars Above, which is a collection of novellas that kind of slot between them. So I read this, but I had to read it in a really strange order, which really kind of irritated it really irritated me actually, because I just wanted to read Winter. I just wanted to crack on with it, and the way that they've structured this is not the way that Marissa Meyer recommends that you read her short stories, which I just think, why would you do that? I think if I was to recommend it to anybody else, as long as you read all of them before you start Winter, I think you'll be okay. Just don't read the last short story in it, which is called Something Old, Something New, because I think that would really give you a lot of spoilers. Other than that, read the rest, and I think they really do add something special to the series to read them in that order. So I read Stars Above. I also read Fairest. It's definitely recommended by the author to read Fairest before you read Winter, and I definitely agree. This is so good. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I loved reading Levana's story from her like point of view. It was really interesting. It was brutal, like graphic, brutal. I can't believe some of the things that she did, but it was so good. Like, I loved it. From what I read, my research on it was that people don't want to read it because they're worried that they will feel sympathetic towards Levana going into Winter. Nah, impossible. It will just give you a bit more insight into her motivations and the reason that she does things. Really good. Definitely recommend that you pick up that if you're picking up the whole series. And then the final book in the series was Winter, and I just loved it. There was a few downsides to it that I just thought, oh, I wanted a little bit more tragedy. Would you describe it that way? But then I have to remind myself, 1, I'm reading YA, and 2, it's a fairy tale. There are certain elements that kind of do need to stick to the way that the originals are kind of written. I say originals. Now, I'm fully aware that Grimm's fairy tales are brutal and awful and don't always have a happy ending, and that's what a lot of fairy tales are based on. But I'm thinking of like more modern retellings. So this is like a retelling of the typical ones that you pick up as a child, not the really terrifying ones. So Winter follows the story of like Snow White, hence the apple. That was something that I was really curious to see how they'd play out, because like these really classic things in fairy tales, Marissa Meyer put her own twists on it. Loved it. So I think I give this one 4 stars just because I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed just enjoying being in that world. It just wasn't as good as the other ones. And then I read 2. Oh no, I read like 3. Oh my god, I read 4 more books. I read 8 books in February, which is just crazy. I didn't have a good month in February, like mental health wise, and I realised that I tend to just read instead. So good coping mechanism, great for reading books, blows my mind away. So the next book I read was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid, Kemmerer. I don't know how you pronounce the name. I don't really care either, because I'll be honest with you, unpopular opinion, hated it. The best thing about this book was reading the 1-star reviews on Goodreads afterwards. Never laughed so much in my life. Amazing. Yeah, A Curse So Dark and Lonely is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, which is one of my favourite fairy tales. Like, favourite all round. Love a story where you get to turn the beast into a prince. Love it. Seeing what's really under the hard and damaged exterior. Love it. Yeah, anyway, my favourite. Like, Once Upon a Time the series, Rumpelstiltskin's my favourite. Love him. I went into this with such high expectations, raved about on YouTube, absolutely loved by the booktube community. So I'm thinking, yeah, let's go for it. Borrowed it from the library, thank God. Started reading it. It had some aspects, some elements that I thought, yeah, this is good. We had a girl, the main character has cerebral palsy, which I thought great. We had some like queer representation as well, and I really loved, if anything, I love how that was handled. It was just so-and-so's got a boyfriend. It was just handled so matter-of-fact that I just absolutely loved that. Problematic though, I've already mentioned that I have dyslexia. So sometimes I do wonder if part of my challenge to read a book comes from my dyslexia. But then the other parts I realise, yeah, writing style has a big thing to do with this. I hated the writing style. It's written from two perspectives. It's written from the female perspective, cannot remember her name, don't care to look it up, and the male perspective, which was the beast, and same, can't remember his name, don't want to look it up. I couldn't tell from one chapter to the next who was talking. Like, I had to find clues within what was being spoken about to find out who was speaking. There wasn't like a distinctive change in character in the writing style. At first I thought that was me until I read another book straight afterwards and thought, nah, that's how you do it. That is how you actually write. Different perspectives. It can be done so easy. I think it was written from first perspective, and it just had a lot of thoughts and feelings that were just boring, irrelevant. I hated how the main character, the male character, spoke about the female character. It did have a lot of, this girl isn't like anybody else. Ugh, just, anyway. What I mainly want to say is it was dull. The writing style was terrible, in my opinion. I know this is an author's work. I couldn't write better, but I'm comparing it with like everything else that I've read. I hated it. I just absolutely hated it. So I gave that a 1 star. I might have given it a 2 actually. Maybe I was being generous that day. I just wasn't a fan. So yeah. After that though, I read this one. This is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by, I'm not even going to attempt it. It's a Japanese author and it was so good. Now this was beautifully written. It's about a cafe that has a time traveling seat where you can go back and experience a period in time, and it is just really, really good. It's really heartwarming. It's beautifully written. Yeah, I read this one in a day. It's not very long. It's about 200, well, I'll tell you how many it is, 213 pages, so it's not a very long book at all, so it's easy to kind of get through in a day if you just want a relaxing Sunday read. It's sad, it made me cry, but it was sad in a happy way, if that makes sense. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I definitely recommend this. I don't want to go into more detail with it because I didn't really know much about this going into it, and it was a nice thing to do. It's not going to be like a page turner in like action and suspense. It's a page turner in, I just want to know more about these characters. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I do like a bit of sci-fi anyway. This was more like supernatural, paranormal / sci-fi in a way. Nah, supernatural, paranormal I'm going to go for. Really good though, really, really good. I then read another book. I can't pronounce the word in this, which really irritates me. 1 second, let me see if Google will tell me how to pronounce this word. This is my life, and I'm okay to admit this now. I'm alright with being dyslexic. It's just before you know that you're dyslexic, when you think, oh, I can't pronounce this word, you feel like an idiot. Anyway, the next book I read, I borrowed from the library. The Kiss Quotient? I don't know. Google says it's got a sh sound in the middle of that word. I don't know. I'd say Quotient by Helen by Helen. It's a chick lit. I just fancied a little bit of chick lit in my life. I needed a bit of romance. The main character has Asperger's, so it's a really interesting plot. She works with data in an office, and one of her colleagues, I want to say boss, but I don't think he was her boss, is a bit of a male chauvinistic pig. And he tells her that she's never going to get a boyfriend if she doesn't know how to sexually please them, basically. I think that's what his point was. I think he was just being a knobhead, if I'm honest. A way of processing this information is to hire a male prostitute to teach her how to sexually please a man so that she's not in a situation where she's uncomfortable again. So she does this, and that's where our story progresses. Now, I didn't actually read the description of this book before I started reading it. Now, if I had, I probably would have expected quite a lot of raunchy scenes straight away. Didn't expect them, but they were really good. They were written really, really well. So if you're okay with like those raunchy, sexy scenes, go for it. Read this book. It is so good. we get to a point in the book where it doesn't focus on that anymore, and it focuses on the character development and this relationship development, and it is beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed how the character was written. I really enjoyed exploring her mindset and the mindset of the other characters as well. Now this is another book that is written from dual perspectives. So like A Curse So Dark and Lonely, this book is also written from the perspective of the female main character and the male main character. This is what proves that A Curse So Dark and Lonely was terrible, because within the first line of each sentence of each paragraph that was from a different character in the Kiss Quotient, I could tell instantly who was talking. Instantly. I didn't have to look around, I didn't have to struggle, I didn't have to like worry what I was reading. It was perfect. So this is how I know that the other one was poorly written, because this was so easy to read. I don't think it's because this is written for adults and this was written for young adult, because I've read some amazing young adult books. So I don't think I had anything to do it. I really can only put it down to the author's writing style and the techniques. I don't think she was that great at that aspect. Whereas Helen, I've always felt really bad calling an author by their first name, but Helen was spot on. She was brilliant at it. Yeah, I loved it. Gave it 5 stars. Fell in love. And the last book that I read in February was also a little bit of a disappointment for me, and it is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And yeah, I had so many high hopes for this book. It's written at this stately home. It's got the setting of an Agatha Christie novel, like a murder mystery. And that's pretty much what it is, or what it's attempting to be. And it revolves around a main character who wakes up in the body of somebody else. He's got no memories, he doesn't know where he is, why he's there, he doesn't know anything. And he comes to realise pretty quickly within the novel that he is part of a game to solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle. So he's got seven days to do that. He's got 8 hosts to do that, and every day he'll wake up in the body of a different host, and he's got to solve the mystery of the death by the end of the 8 host and give this guy the answer, or all the memories will be wiped and he'll go through this process again. That sounds brilliant. Part of the problem that I had with this book, I don't think it went in the way that I wanted it to go. It was extremely confusing. There was a lot of different characters that were introduced, and I was able to kind of catch up with that. That was fine. In a way, it was too many, but I understood the reason for it. It is a murder mystery, we've got to find out who's done it, and it is kind of set in this stately home where there's a party going off. So there's a lot of characters that we need to know. There's also the characters that this guy wakes up every single day, and they definitely, the one thing I can really say that's great about this book is they definitely have a different feeling about each of these characters. You can tell that he's in a totally different body each time. The problem that I had with the book though is there was no trail to follow, and I had to realise this pretty quickly, that this wasn't because I wasn't intelligent enough to figure it out. It was because I don't think the author wanted you to figure it out. He didn't want you to find out what had happened, or where he was, or why he was there, or who killed Evelyn Hardcastle until the end. And that was so frustrating. Like for me, if I'm reading a murder mystery or a thriller or anything like that, I kind of want to be fed little bits of information so I can figure out who has done it or where the plot is going. That's like part of the fun for me. Even if I'm wrong, even if the author is intentionally sending me down a completely different path just to like twist it at the end. Like, I love that. I love thinking, oh my god, I'm so intelligent, I get this, I figured it out, to find out that I haven't at all. Like, I love that. This is not one of those books. This is, I'm not going to tell you anything until right at the end, and I'm just going to have a big reveal. But that also really irritated me anyway, because throughout the majority of this book, we know every single thought and feelings that our main character has. Like, everything. Like, if this character had an itchy big toe, we'd find out about it. There's a scene in particular that really gets on people's nerves because there's a lot of fat phobia that goes off, and we know every single thing this character is feeling. And we hear about every single thought process that he's going through, like everything. Except from near the end, as he's figuring out what's going off and who killed Evelyn Hardcastle, and he tells us nothing. And I just think that's just not in keeping with the character at all. We've found out absolutely everything, and now you're just like, oh, I think I figured it out. Well, tell me then. You've told me everything else. Tell me what you figured out. Like, let me come along with you. Don't be too clever that you're just the reader. You don't need to figure this out. Really irritated me. It was also far too long as well. I got halfway through the book thinking, I get the concept now. This is really good. Oh my gosh, I've got another half a book to go. What is even going to happen in this? Yeah, it was far too long, about 200 pages too long, I would say. And the other main problem that I had with it is what I said before, which is it went down a different path than that I was expecting. The main plot of this story is pretty much the death of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I guess is told about in the title. I get that. But for me, like, this screamed sci-fi when I picked it up. Like, absolutely screamed sci-fi. And I wanted to know why on earth he was waking up in the body of somebody else every day. What happened? What was going off? Why, like, what was this world that was doing this? Like, I had my theories. I was pretty much right about that bit. I didn't really care about Evelyn Hardcastle. I didn't really care about the people in this because I knew that there was a bigger picture going on, that I just didn't care about these characters. And while that was revealed, so you will get a reveal, I was just a bit ugh by that point. I just didn't care. And it was also spoke about within a piece of dialogue, so it was hardly touched upon. It just wasn't my cup of tea at all. I just expected so much more. 3 stars I gave it, but the more I think about it, the more I want to drop it to 2 stars, because I just... very, very disappointing read. Really crappy end to February, really. Anyway, those were all the books that I read in January and February. I'm surrounded by books right now, and this video is far too long, so I'm not really sure I'm going to edit it down, but I'm back making videos. It's going to be a lot shorter next month anyway, because I've got 2 university assignments to hand in March, and I've also got, well, I'm also a bit happier, so I'm not going to be reading as many books. The next video that you'll probably see on this channel is my March TBR, because I've already picked the books that I want to read next month. And other than that, I am so happy to be back. I'm so glad that you're watching these videos, and I will see you soon for another video. But for now, bye bye.